Somewhere in the jungles of southern Mexico, a stone is speaking. It has been speaking for over 1,000 years. Nobody listened. Until now. Carved into that stone is a calendar. Not a simple calendar. A calendar that tracks time across millions of years. A calendar so mathematically precise it still astonishes modern astronomers. And carved into that same stone, a warning. A warning about exactly what happens when a civilization ignores the signs. The Maya did not predict the end of the world. They predicted something far more specific, far more terrifying. And the date they chose, the signs they described, are not in the past. They are happening right now. Who were the Maya? Where did they come from? How did a civilization with no metal tools and no wheeled vehicles build cities in the middle of impenetrable jungle that aligned perfectly with the stars overhead? How did they calculate the length of a solar year more accurately than the calendar you use today? How did they predict solar eclipses centuries in advance, without a single telescope? And why, at the absolute peak of their power, did they abandon every single one of their great cities? Why did 10 million people walk away from everything they had ever built? And what exactly did they carve into their stones before they left? These are the questions we are going to answer today. Every single one. But before we go any further, if you are the kind of person who needs to know the full story, the story that goes beyond what any textbook ever told you, subscribe right now. Turn on notifications, because we do this every single week, and you do not want to miss what is next. Chapter 1. The People Who Watched the Sky. To understand the Maya warning, you first need to understand the Maya themselves. Not the myth, not the Hollywood version, the real people. The Maya civilization emerged around 2000 BCE in Mesoamerica. In the region that is today southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. At their peak, roughly 250 CE to 900 CE, they were extraordinary. They built over 40 major cities across the jungle landscape. Cities with populations rivaling ancient Rome at its height. Tikal, Palenque, Chichen Itza, Copan, Uxmal, names that today are archaeological sites. But once, they were living, breathing metropolises. Tikal alone covered 60 square miles of urban landscape. It housed over 100,000 people at its peak. Its tallest pyramid rose 70 meters above the jungle floor, taller than a modern 20-story building, built without metal tools, without the wheel, without draft animals, without cranes or pulleys. Just human hands, obsidian tools, rope, and an engineering genius we are still trying to understand. But it was not the pyramids that made the Maya truly remarkable. It was what they built them to do. Every Maya pyramid is also an astronomical instrument. At Chichen Itza, during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the shadow cast by the pyramid's stepped edges creates a perfect serpent, slithering down the northern staircase. Precisely. Every single year. This is not a coincidence. This is engineering so precise that modern architects are still debating how they achieved it. At Palenque, the Temple of the Inscriptions is aligned, so that on the winter solstice, the setting sun shines directly down the staircase, into the burial chamber of the great King Pakal deep underground. Light traveling down stone stairs to illuminate a dead king. Once a year. Every year. For over 1,000 years. The Maya were not just building cities. They were building messages. Messages written in stone and shadow and starlight. Messages meant to last longer than any human life. Longer than any empire. Messages meant for someone who would come much, much later. Messages meant, perhaps, for us. Chapter 2. The most sophisticated calendar ever built. To understand the Maya warning, you need to understand the Maya calendar. Not just one calendar. The Maya used 17 distinct interlocking calendars simultaneously. 17. Simultaneously. Each tracking a different cycle of time, astronomical, agricultural, ceremonial, cosmic. The most famous of these is the long count calendar. This is the calendar that the entire world misunderstood in 2012. And that misunderstanding, that embarrassing global panic, actually buried the real message underneath a mountain of ridicule. So let us set the record straight right now. The long count calendar tracks time in cycles called biekatons. One biekaton equals approximately 394 years. 13 biekatons, one complete great cycle, equals approximately 5,125 years. The Maya calculated that the current great cycle began on August 11th, 3114 BCE. and they calculated that it would complete on December 21st, 2012 CE. The world looked at that end date and screamed. The Maya predicted the apocalypse. The world was wrong. The Maya never said the world would end on December 21st, 2012. What they said was far more nuanced, far more specific, and far more disturbing. They said that at the completion of a great cycle, the world does not end. It transforms. In Maya cosmology, the universe has been created and destroyed multiple times. Each creation is called a Sunday. We are currently living in the fifth sun. The fourth sun ended in catastrophic flood. The third sun ended in fire. The second sun ended in hurricane winds that stripped the world bare. Each sun ends not because of a random cosmic event, but because the people living in it failed to fulfill their responsibility to the earth. Let that land for a moment. In Maya cosmology, civilizations do not collapse because of bad luck. They collapse because of choices. Specific, identifiable, preventable choices. And the Maya, who watched for previous civilizations collapse before their own, recorded exactly which choices ended each one. Now, about that calendar precision. The Maya calculated the length of a solar year as 365.2420 days. The actual length of a solar year is 365.2422 days. The difference is 0.0002 days per year. The Gregorian calendar, the one on your phone right now, calculates it as 365.2425 days. The Maya were more accurate than the calendar the entire modern world currently uses. Without a single telescope, without a single computer, without a single metal instrument. They also calculated the Venus cycle, the orbit of Venus around the Sun, as 583.92 days. The actual figure is 583.92 days. Perfect. Exact. Identical. They calculated lunar cycles accurate to within 33 seconds per year. 33 seconds per year, without a single modern instrument. This is not the astronomy of a primitive culture. This is the astronomy of a civilization that spent centuries, millennia, doing nothing but watching the sky with absolute obsessive precision. And when a civilization watches the sky that carefully for that long, it begins to see patterns that we have only recently started to rediscover. Patterns in solar cycles, patterns in magnetic field fluctuations, patterns in civilizational collapse. The Maya did not just watch the sky to know what time it was. They watched the sky to understand what was coming. Chapter 3. What the stones actually say. The Maya left their knowledge in three primary forms: stone inscriptions, bark paper books called codices, and oral tradition. The Spanish conquistadors burned almost everything. In 1562, Bishop Diego de Landa ordered the burning of every Maya codex he could find. Thousands of books. Centuries of accumulated astronomical knowledge. Gone in an afternoon. De Landa himself later wrote, and this is documented, that the Maya wept as their books burned. Wept with a grief, he wrote, that caused him great pain to witness. He burned them anyway. Only 4 Maya codices survived the conquest. 4 out of thousands. The Dresden Codex, the Madrid Codex, the Paris Codex, the Grolier Codex. Each one a window into a world of knowledge that was almost entirely destroyed. The Dresden Codex alone contains Venus tables accurate to within 2 hours, across a 500-year period, calculated in advance, without instruments. But it is what the Dresden Codex ends with that matters most for our story today. The final pages of the Dresden Codex show the sky falling, water pouring from the mouth of a celestial serpent, a great flood consuming everything, a black goddess of destruction presiding over the end. Scholars spent decades interpreting this as mythology, symbolic imagery, religious art. Then in 2010, a team of researchers made a connection that changed everything. The flood imagery in the Dresden Codex final pages corresponds precisely to specific astronomical alignments that the Maya had documented as precursors to catastrophic climate events, not symbolic floods, real floods, documented climate catastrophes. The Maya had been recording connections between astronomical cycles and climate events for over 1,000 years before the Spanish arrived, and they had identified a specific recurring pattern, a pattern of solar activity, magnetic field shifts, climate destabilization, a pattern they called, in their own inscriptions, the return of the Dark Rift. The Dark Rift is a real astronomical feature. It is the dense band of dust clouds at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, visible from Earth as a dark lane running through the bright center of the galaxy. The Maya called it the road to Xibalba, the road to the underworld, and they calculated that on December 21st, 2012, the winter solstice sun would align precisely with the dark rift at the galactic center. This alignment happens once every 26,000 years. Once every 26,000 years. The Maya knew this, calculated it, marked it, and wrote around it extensively, not as the end of the world, but as the end of an age, the beginning of a transition that, according to their records, would be preceded by specific signs. Signs they recorded in extraordinary detail. Let us go through those signs one by one. Chapter 4. The signs they said would come. The Maya inscriptions describe a specific sequence of events that would precede the end of the fifth sun. These are not vague poetic metaphors. They are specific, observable phenomena. Sign 1. The trees will disappear. In the Chilambalam, one of the surviving Maya prophetic texts, the scribes write of a time when the great forests are stripped from the earth, when the lungs of the world are cut down for short-term gain. Today, the Amazon, the largest rainforest on Earth, loses an area the size of a football field every single minute. The Maya jungle itself, the very forest they built their civilization within, has lost over 50% of its original coverage since 1950. Sign 1 is not coming. Sign 1 is already here. Sign 2. The waters will become poison. The Maya texts describe a time when the rivers run sick, when the rain that falls carries destruction rather than life, when the ocean itself begins to die from its own heat. Today, ocean acidification, caused by CO2 absorption, is occurring at a rate faster than any point in the last 300 million years. The Great Barrier Reef has lost over 50% of its coral since 1995. Freshwater sources globally are contaminated at a scale our grandparents could not have imagined. Sign 2 is not coming. Sign 2 is already here. Sign 3. The sky will grow angry. The Maya records describe intensifying storms, floods in places that were once dry, droughts in places that were once fertile, weather that no longer follows its ancient patterns. Since 1980, the number of Category 4 and Category 5 hurricanes globally has increased by over 50%. The 5 most expensive natural disasters in recorded human history have all occurred since the year 2000. Sign 3 is not coming. Sign 3 is already here. Sign 4. People will forget how to live together. This is perhaps the most chilling of all the Maya signs. The texts describe a time when the social bonds that hold civilization together dissolve, when people stop trusting each other, stop trusting their leaders, when communities fragment, when the shared story that holds a society together falls apart, when knowledge becomes weaponized, when truth becomes negotiable. Look around you right now and tell me that sign has not arrived. Sign 5. The sun itself will change. The Maya solar records, which tracked sunspot activity with remarkable accuracy, describe a period of unusual solar behavior preceding the transition. In 2019, NASA confirmed that the sun entered an unusual solar minimum, the deepest recorded solar minimum in over a century. In 2022, it then swung to an unusually intense solar maximum, producing the strongest solar flares recorded in 20 years. The Maya called this the sun waking from sleep and crying out. NASA calls it solar cycle 25 behaving anomalously. Different words, the same observation. Now here is where it gets truly uncomfortable. The Maya did not just describe these signs as things to fear. They described them as things to respond to, things to act upon. In their cosmology, the end of a sun is not inevitable. It is a choice, a collective choice made by the civilization living through the transition. The question the Maya left carved in stone was never, will the world end? The question they left was, what will you do when you see the signs? Chapter 5. When the Maya themselves ignored the signs. Here is the part of the Maya story that most documentaries skip over. The Maya did not just predict civilizational collapse. They lived it. Between 800 CE and 1000 CE, something extraordinary happened. In less than 200 years, virtually every major Maya city in the southern lowlands was abandoned, completely, permanently. Tikal, the greatest city in Maya history, emptied out. Palenque, Copan, Quirigua, Caracol, all abandoned within a generation. The jungle swallowed them whole. and for 1,000 years, nobody knew they had existed. Archaeologists call this the classic Maya collapse, one of history's great unsolved mysteries. But it is becoming less unsolved with every passing decade of research. What happened to the Maya was not a single catastrophe. It was a perfect storm of interconnected failures. Sound familiar? Factor 1. Deforestation. The Maya cleared massive areas of jungle to build their cities and grow their crops. Paleoclimatology studies of lake sediment cores from the Maya region show a dramatic increase in soil erosion and forest clearance. Beginning around 600 CE, 3 centuries before the collapse, the Maya were cutting down their own environment to sustain their own growth. And their own environment was beginning to fail them in return. Factor 2. Drought. Climate scientists analyzing stalactite growth records from Belize caves have reconstructed the rainfall patterns of the Maya lowlands going back 2,000 years. What they found was devastating. Between 800 CE and 1000 CE, the precise period of the classic collapse, the Maya lowlands experienced a series of prolonged and severe droughts. Not one drought, a series, recurring, intensifying, each one worse than the last. And here is the critical connection the researchers made. The droughts were made significantly worse by the deforestation. The trees that had once held moisture in the soil and fed the rain cycle were gone. The Maya had cut down the very system that protected them from drought. And when the drought came, as the sky watchers among them had long predicted it would, there was nothing left to soften its impact. Factor 3. Overpopulation and resource wars. As food and water became scarce, Maya city-states began fighting each other. Not occasional ritual warfare, which had always been part of Maya culture, but sustained, desperate, resource-driven conflict. The archaeological record from this period shows a sharp spike in violence. Decapitation monuments, mass grave sites, burned civic buildings. Cities that had traded peacefully for centuries were now raiding each other for grain. Factor 4. Political collapse. As the crisis deepened, the divine kings, the Ajah, lost their authority. When a king's power rested on his ability to intercede with the gods for rain, and the rain stopped coming, his power evaporated with it. The last dated monument at Tikal was erected in 869 CE. After that, silence. The stone carvers stopped. The kings stopped commissioning. The city simply emptied. Over decades, family by family, quarter by quarter, until the jungle took back what the Maya had taken from it. Now read that sequence again carefully. Environmental destruction, climate destabilization, resource scarcity, social fragmentation, political collapse, civilizational abandonment. The Maya did not just predict this sequence for some future civilization. They lived it. They documented it. They carved the warning of it into stone. And then, remarkably, they left. Not defeated, not conquered, just left. As if they knew that the city itself was no longer the point. As if they were leaving the stones behind deliberately. As a record, as a message, for whoever came next. Chapter 6. What the warning actually says. Let us be very precise here. Because precision matters. The Maya did not say, "The world will end and there is nothing you can do." That is not what the inscriptions say. That is not what the codices say. What they say is this. Every civilization reaches a moment of decision. A moment when the signs are clear. When the pattern is undeniable. When anyone paying attention can see exactly where the current path leads. At that moment, the Maya texts say, a civilization has two choices. It can continue. Keep building. Keep consuming. Keep ignoring. Trust that the sky watchers are wrong. Trust that the signs are coincidental. Trust that this time, unlike every previous time, the pattern will not complete. Or, it can transform. Not collapse. Transform. The Maya word for the end of a great cycle is not destruction. It is renewal. The same astronomical event that ends one age plants the seed of the next. The Maya believed, and this is carved in stone across dozens of sites, that human beings have the capacity to choose which outcome they receive, collapse or renewal, ending or transformation, the fifth sun dying or evolving into the sixth. The choice, they said, belongs to the people living through the transition, not to kings, not to priests, not to the gods, to the people. The Maya built their warning into every pyramid, every calendar, every carved stone face. They built it to last longer than their own civilization. They built it knowing they themselves might not survive to deliver it in person. They were right about that. But the stones survived. The codices survived. The sky survived. And the warning survived with them. Closing. Here is what I want you to carry with you after this video ends. The Maya were not prophets in the religious sense. They were scientists. They were pattern recognizers, long-term thinkers, civilizational historians. They watched four previous ages end. They recorded how and why each one ended. They identified the recurring warning signs. They built systems to track them. And then they handed that knowledge forward in the most durable medium available to them. Stone, stars, shadow, calendar. They could not send us an email. They could not post a video. So they built temples that create shadows shaped like serpents once a year, just to make sure we would pay attention. That is not the behavior of a civilization that has given up. That is the behavior of a civilization that desperately wanted the next one to survive. And we are the next one. Every sign they described is present. Every pattern they documented is active. The question they carved into the stone is now our question to answer. Not governments, not scientists, not leaders, us, you and me. Right now, the Maya gave us the calendar. They gave us the signs. They gave us the choice. What we do with that choice is entirely up to us. And that, more than any apocalypse prediction, more than any end-of-world theory, is the most powerful thing the Maya ever left behind. Not a prophecy of doom, a blueprint for survival. So here is the question I want you to answer in the comments right now. Do you think humanity is heading toward collapse or transformation? The Maya said the choice belongs to the people living through the transition. You are one of those people. So what do you choose? Leave your answer below, because in part 2 of this series, we are going even deeper into the specific Maya texts that modern governments have quietly funded research into, and what that research has found. If this video changed how you see the world, share it with someone who needs to see it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one, where we go even further into the warning the Maya left. Because we are nowhere near done with this story. Not even close.